On to item K, resolutions. We have one item before us, which is Resolution 371, supporting bargaining between Office and Professional Employees International Union, OPEIU Local 39, and CUNA Mutual Group. We have 99 people registered in support who do not wish to speak. We have 9 registered in support who do wish to speak, and we have a couple in person here as well.
We'll promote Greg right now.
Thank you. Speaking in support of this resolution, CUNA Mutual Group has been a unionized shop for quite some time. Lately, they have during this new round of contract negotiations, they've taken a more than aggressive stance against, and there's another way of putting it, against doing any real bargaining with the local union. And it's just came out an article today in Tone Magazine. The head of the head of the local president has been, it certainly looks like it's been retaliated against. This is the kind of thing that there might be this discussion about, well, what are we doing? Mentioning something for a private company. This is just the kind of thing that can't be tolerated in our area. And it's perfectly acceptable, and I think it's perfectly necessary for this body to really demand that CUNA Mutual just follow the law and bring people back and negotiate in good faith with Local 39. Thank you very much.
Any questions for Gregory? Okay, hearing none. We'll move on to our next registrant. Lindsay, is that Harry Richardson?
Yes, I don't need to speak after all. I am in favor of this ordinance. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, very good. All right.
Yes.
On to, my apologies if I'm mispronouncing your name, Tuta Rasad?
Hi, my name is Tuta Rasad, and I am an employee with CUNA Mutual for the past 24 years and a union member. Tonight, I want to talk about CUNA Mutual's values and practices in regards to diversity, equity, and inclusion. First, I want to touch on the claim of inclusion on pay equity. While the company is conducting pay equity reviews twice a year for the non-represented employees and adjusting wages, that right is being denied to our union members. When the union requested to have those pay equity reviews done for the represented employees, the company's lawyers told our bargaining team that giving the union access to the data would open the company to liability coverages. For the non-represented staff, they conduct these reviews privately behind closed doors. If these pay equity reviews are conducted ethically, then they should be done behind they shouldn't be done behind closed doors and should be conducted for all, represented and none. Thus, CUNA Mutual should have nothing to worry about. We as for these can be held accountable. We applaud the company for adjusting wages for non-represented coworkers, especially during the economic times that we're going through, but we, the union members, deserve the same treatment as our counterparts. In addition to the pay equity inclusion, I also want to raise awareness to company stance on the Rooney Rule that the company proposed, that the union proposed for CUNA Mutual to adopt, and it was rejected by the company. For those unfamiliar with the Rooney Rule, it was introduced by NFL, and it is a diversity policy that mandates teams interview at least 2 ethnic minority candidates for each external job posted in hopes to increase diversity within an organization. And even though this rule does not require the company to hire any of those candidates, it was again rejected. Last but not least, the union also proposed to make additional efforts to do recruitment outreach at historically Black colleges and universities as a measure to diversify our workforce. And that proposal, as you can guess, was also rejected. We're happy that the CUNA Mutual donates large sums of money to local nonprofits and communities that we live in. All we are asking is that the company's external DEI values are also applied internally to the employees who make CUNA Mutual successful day in and day out. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for Tuta? All right, hearing none, our next speaker then is Mike Farwell.
Evening, and thank you. So I am a union steward at CUNA Mutual Group. I'm also a member of the bargaining team there as we're going through negotiations for this past year. I was brought on at CUNA Mutual Group as a contract to hire in 2014, and they brought me in as a full-time employee approximately a year later. And so being on both sides of the contractor and employee divide, I wanted to speak a little bit about CUNA Mutual's use of contractors. So over the past 20 years, our union membership at CUNA Mutual Group has fallen from approximately 1,700 employees there to the current number of around 450. During that same time period, use of contractors has absolutely skyrocketed. Currently, we're estimating that there are many hundreds of contractors being used. It's likely well over 1,000. I say estimated because the company is required contractually to provide the union a list of contractors that are being used. And the current list that they've provided to us is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 40 names. Personally, I've seen more than 40 individual contractors in single meetings, and usually in large department-wide meetings, there's many hundreds in there. These contractors are from all over the place. Many are in the Madison area, but there's also many that reside throughout the United States, and also many that are in India and several other foreign countries. Now, the union is not saying that we don't want the company to use contractors when it's appropriate. There is very much a time and a place to use contractors. For example, sometimes you have temporary project work that needs to be done where it doesn't make sense to bring on an employee just to have to turn around and let them go in a short time period. Sometimes contractors can bring expertise that employees may not have or need to be brought on to fill a vacancy at times. The key here is that these are all temporary. In the contract that we currently have, contractors are allowed to be used for up to 12 months. As we're working with these contractors, it's not unusual for us to be working side by side with the same contractor performing the same job duties as us for well more than a year at a time. And there are instances where some of these contractors have been working there for well over 10 years. If they're going to be working there for that long, we should be hiring people to perform those jobs and not just keep using cheap outsourced labor so that way we can avoid paying people what they're actually worth for the job they're doing and avoid paying benefits to them. Now, we don't have any ill will towards these contractors themselves. We work side by side with them very frequently, day in, day out. They're colleagues and quite often become friends to us. Many of them express a desire to work for CUNA Mutual Group, but are denied either through their contractual obligations through their contracting firm, or CUNA just chooses not to bring them on. They often mention that they either have no benefits or that the benefits that are available are extremely high cost to them, and it's not unusual that their salaries are far below what anybody would consider fair for the job they're doing. We want them to be able to work with us and have a good paying job with good benefits. With all that said, I strongly urge the board to support our union's efforts to improve job security and expand the number of good jobs available in Dane County. Thank you.
Any questions for Mike? None. Thank you. Our next speaker is Michelle Curtis.
Hi, I'm an employee at CUNA Mutual Group and a member of OPEIU Local 39. One of the benefits we're trying to negotiate is affordable and sufficient health insurance for our members and their families. Currently, the majority of our members opt into our HMO plan. This gives members the security of knowing they will never have a big out-of-pocket expense all at once. Our employer tries to remove this plan every time we bargain, but conceded to keep it before negotiations broke down. However, not all members are in the coverage area of that plan. The number of people that our company hires remotely continues to increase every year, and most of members will not have access to this quality plan soon. This is why our remaining healthcare proposals addressing the high deductible plans are so important. The other options have substantial deductibles, for example, $1,500 to $2,000 for the employee-only coverage before the insurance begins covering expenses. For those who are living paycheck to paycheck, this can be a prohibitively high amount of money that may lead members to avoid seeking medical care when they need it. Before my partner passed away, I was supporting both of us, and he had a heart attack a few years before. Instead of calling an ambulance, he called me at work, and I told him to call an ambulance, and he said, "We can't afford it." Because I had the HMO, I was able to tell him it was covered, and he got treatment before the issue became fatal. If I hadn't had the HMO, he wouldn't have called the ambulance and would have died 3 years sooner than he did. Members that can't choose the HMO may very well come to that sort of crisis. All of our members need to have access to insurance without prohibitively high deductibles that provide a reasonable level of coverage and care. When a company is as profitable year over year as CUNA Mutual Group is, no employee or their family should be forced to decide whether or not to seek potentially life-saving medical care. Thank you.
Any questions for Michelle? Hearing none. Our next speaker is Brian Barber.
Thank you. My name is Brian Barber. Like Mike Farwell, I'm also a steward and a member of the bargaining team, and I would like to address the unfair labor practice charges against our employer with the National Labor Relations Board. The charges we have filed are for first, failure to meet and confer. In December, CUNA Mutual Group made the unilateral decision to end bargaining pay during the workday, which disrupted the established practice that existed between the parties for the first 10 months of bargaining. This forced our bargaining team to have to decide between bargaining during the workday without pay or working our regular work schedules. The employer then insisted that the parties bargain in person in a second attempt to make a unilateral decision without the union's agreement or negotiating with the union. Some employees on our bargaining team need to be available to work until at least 5 p.m., and some live outside the Dane County area, making their insistence on bargaining in person extremely disruptive to our families' lives. The employer's unilateral demands I described are the sole reason the meet and confer process has been brought to an unlawful standstill. The second ULP charge is for retaliation and discrimination. And the employer has withheld commission payments to bargaining unit employees without cause. And this is tied to an issue we had, or the company had, where a technical glitch within their system caused a delay in commission payments to represented field reps in our investor guidance center. The company stated that the payments would be delayed by 3 months. Our IGC field reps rely on these payments as part of their income to support their families. The same glitch also affected non-represented field reps, people outside the union, and yet somehow they were all paid on time. The company offered no explanation for why only represented employees within the IGC would have to wait an additional 3 months for their commission payments. After filing ULP charges for retaliation and discrimination, the company changed course and was able to resolve the issue for our represented field reps, and the commission payments were paid out only a week late. The fact that it took a ULP charge for our represented field reps to be paid on time points to this being a form of retaliation. The third ULP charge is for bargaining in bad faith. In addition to placing unnecessary restrictions on bargaining, the company has also refused to provide counter proposals and respond to information requests in a timely manner. The union provided a counter proposal to our employer on January 12th, 2023, and we did not receive a proposal back until Thursday afternoon on February 16th, more than a month later. This is despite the NLRB standard of 10 business days for each party to reasonably provide a counter proposal. The employer, CUNA Mutual Group, also delayed providing information related to the commission payments for the IGC. Again, we requested this information in early January, and it took them until February to get that to us. And the final ULP charge is related to what Mike discussed. It's related to the joint employer rule. The CUNA Mutual Group has used contractors as a way of sidestepping having to negotiate with the union over their jobs. And like Mike mentioned, the company has over 1,000 contractors, even though according to them, there are only about 40. And for all intents and purposes, these contractors are employees. The company supervises their work, they determine their schedule, they discipline them, etc. And many of them perform work that is identical to the work performed by bargaining unit members. And contracting has really become an epidemic at CUNA Mutual and is one of the many tools that they have used to undermine and weaken our union over the last several decades. We believe a significant number of these contractors are doing represented work, and the company has intentionally withheld notifying the union of them in order to diminish our collective bargaining power. These examples are among the many reasons why we have reached out to our leaders in our communities to support a resolution that brings the company back to the bargaining table and ensures that they cannot ignore our requests for a fair contract. Thank you.
All right, any questions for Brian? Seeing none. Our next speaker is Joel Avica.
So, hi everyone. My name is Joey Vicka. I'm an employee at CUNA Mutual Group. I've been an employee for about 4 years. I'm also the chief steward of our union. My coworkers have been fighting for the last year for a fair contract, and we've gone 2 years without a pay increase. What we're asking for is wages that keep up with inflation, to keep our pension plan, to maintain quality health care for our members, to stop the rampant outsourcing and contracting of our work, and for the equal implementation of pay equity adjustments for our union members. Despite record profits for the last several years, my coworkers have been met with resistance every step of the way. The company has been offering ceaseless updates via work email to try to divide members against each other. They've been hiring anti-union law firms to represent them at the bargaining table. They've illegally stalled the bargaining process, causing us to have to file multiple unfair labor practice charges. And as some of you know, they've also been sending their corporate representatives to meetings for you all in order to try to get you to postpone this resolution. Most recently, on Tuesday, the day after I met with the mayor of Madison, I was called into a meeting as I started work, and I was told that I'm being put under investigation for potential disciplinary action, including an up to termination. They told me that they hired the second largest anti-union law firm in order to conduct their investigation, and that they were forcing me to immediately hand over my work laptop. This happened within a week of my coworkers holding an emergency meeting where we were discussing the potential of going out on an unfair labor practice strike. And as their union representative, my coworkers often reach out to me through my work email, through Teams messages, through other kinds of correspondence in confidence in order to ask me questions, sensitive questions about their employment status, about their benefits, about discipline, all those things. And with my company taking my computer, I can only assume right now that they're currently reviewing all of the private messages that I've been sending to my coworkers in the process of trying to assist them, regardless of whether that's legal or not. I just want to say I'm really concerned that they're going to attempt to try to terminate me in retaliation for my role as a workplace leader. And My first thought after they told me that they'd put me under investigation was of my spouse and how we'd pay our bills if I'm unfairly terminated. We bought a house just last year, a mile away from CUNA Mutual Group on the west side of Madison. And I'm here to say that my coworkers won't be intimidated, I won't be intimidated, and we're gonna continue to fight until we've given all of our energy into this struggle in order to make sure that we receive a fair contract. And I really just urge you today to just listen to the voices of 450 employees that are represented at our company who are trying to secure that contract, and to vote in favor of Resolution 371. Thanks.
Any questions?
Joe?
Supervisor Bear? Question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Joe, thanks for joining us. I can tell that this is difficult and emotional, obviously, and hope you take some solace in knowing that you have some friends and advocates here willing to stand with you in solidarity. What are some of the things that we can do to be helpful?
Well, obviously, this resolution is important. But secondly, we're still in the process of potentially taking additional workplace action. We've already engaged in informational pickets throughout the year. We've sent letters to our CEO. We've emailed HR. We've sent 7,000 letters to credit union leaders all across the country. You know, we've done everything basically in our power over the last year in order to get our employer to move from at the bargaining table. But it's very possible that my employers or my coworkers and I may have to seriously consider the idea of authorizing a strike vote. So in the event that we do that, I would really just hope that that all of you could show up, show support at the picket line. You know, amplify our voices with your social media, amplify our voices with reaching out to your constituents. We have a template letter if you are interested in trying to sign on in support to that. You can reach out to us. We're happy to provide any information that we can in order to assist if you're willing. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Seeing none. Our next speaker is David Howell.
My name is David Howell, and I have worked for CUNA Mutual Group for 4 years as a software developer, and I'm also a member of our contract action team. At the start of these negotiations, our employer expressed to us that they did not expect these negotiations to be concessionary for the union. Despite this, the company is proposing to eliminate the pension plan for all new hires. This is in spite of CUNA Mutual Group posting over $1 billion in net profit over the course of the last 3 years. In past contract negotiations, the company has asked the union to make concessions during bargaining to support their financial health during economic hardship. However, now that our employer is thriving, they are still trying to cut back our benefit plan. Even if CUNA Mutual Group was struggling financially, cutting the pension plan would do very little to help them. According to their own projections, it would save them only $189,000 over the course of the next 3 years. This is a drop in the bucket compared to their $1 billion in net profit from the previous 3 years. Part of the company's business portfolio is an entire division dedicated to providing pension plans for thousands of credit union employees and other businesses across the country. We love that CUNA Mutual Group helps provide those benefits to our customers. Now we're asking them to do it, continue to do it for their own employees. And while that $189,000 number is a small one for the company, it is significant for our future members, and it is unreasonable to make cuts to their retirement. Pension plans have become more rare as companies continue to target the retirement benefits of employees over the last 40+ years. Nevertheless, we have also proposed to replace the pension plan with equivalent compensation for our incoming members, such as increasing our new hires' 401k, employer contributions, and/or increasing employer contributions to their HSAs. Regardless, the company has rejected our proposals. The company's current proposal would result in future members having their employer contributions to their retirement plan cut in half. It's hard not to think about how many additional years our new members will have to work to make up for those lost funds. Proposing cuts to our retirement benefits at a time when CUNA Mutual Group is doing so well is hurtful to our members who have worked so hard to put the company in its current position. Our employer often discusses providing its customers with financial strength and stability. It would be welcome to see that same attitude extended towards the financial strength and stability of their own employees. Retaining our pension plan for all of our members would put us one step closer to making that a reality. And as I am the last of your speakers, I just want to thank you so much for your time. I know that was a lot of folks to listen to, and you have a lot of things on your agenda tonight, but this is incredibly important to us, and it means a lot that you all brought this resolution forth and that you're listening to us all here tonight, so thank you.
Any questions for David? I will correct David, there is one more registrant. We have Henry Brown.
Yeah, I'll keep this very brief because I think folks have said some really good stuff. But my name is Henry Brown, and I'm just here as a community member to support this resolution because CMG workers deserve a fair deal. We've already gone, like Mike said, from about 1,700 union jobs in this unit to about 450. Workers deserve access to health care. Workers deserve access to these, necessary retirement benefits. All these kinds of things got to stand with these workers. And I'm also just here as a community member because I know other employers are watching these negotiations. We've watched a lot of, good union jobs leave this area, leave this county over the years. And when CMG drags bargaining out for over a year and retaliates against union members, when any employer like CMG locally refuses to come to the table and bargain with workers in good faith, it has an effect on workers organizing for better jobs across the whole county and beyond. So if we want to keep these good paying jobs in Dane County, we need to make it clear as a community that we support this union in their effort to win a fair contract. Thank you all very much, and hope you support the resolution.
Any questions for Henry? All right, seeing none. All right, so as I mentioned, what's before us is Executive Committee recommendation for approval as amended in committee. Supervisor Wegleitner.
Thank you, Chair Miles. I'm going to move the sub 1 or Wegleitner sub.
Seconded by Collins.
Thank you. Yes, so this substitute includes the amendments made at the Executive Committee. It also reflects some clarifying language. After I am the lead sponsor of this resolution, and the resolution was drafted in close collaboration with the local 39, and we at exec there was a representative from CUNA Mutual Group there who had some concerns. They stated I did meet with 3 executives from CUNA Mutual Group last Friday and included a bit of language based on that conversation to clarify some of the union's demands around the pay equity review. In my meeting with the CUNA Mutual Group execs, it was clear to me that they did not even know really what the union was asking for with some of their proposals. And so I encouraged them to get back to the table so they could inform themselves better about these proposals. So in addition, this substitute also includes new language in lines 45 through 47, condemning any discipline and retaliation for union activity or collective action, particularly when it targets workplace leaders and stewards. And I think this is important given recent developments and actions taken against union leaders and as explained to us in the public comment. So that's what this substitute amendment does.
Supervisor Doolin.
Thank you, Chair. We had someone come into executive committee on behalf of CMG claiming that they were in good faith trying to collectively bargain. The retaliation piece doesn't leave me sure about that. People can't live on low wages. If you're a big successful company and you're not paying your employees at least 3 times the cost of housing at a bare minimum, you're part of the economic problem. A company's image is one of its most valuable assets within the community, and a failure to give effective recognition to the right of collective bargaining does nothing to change my view of CMG in this regard. It makes me wonder if they're even aware of what people say about the not so hidden trending increase of hiring contract workers that coincidentally reduces the number of union represented employees over time. Collective bargaining gives legitimacy to the rules of regulating labor relations. When a company involves their workforce in negotiating terms and conditions of employment, they're more likely to be complied with. Good faith employee management relations creates a loyal, productive, and stable workforce, which benefits the overall economic stability of the surrounding community. So why would an employer be against involving their workforce in decisions that directly affect them through collective bargaining? The easy answer is that typically when collective bargaining is used, workers tend to receive a greater share of productivity gains as wages. So let's break down economics a little bit in terms of this. The cost of production also includes the cost of labor. If you don't get economic equilibrium with an underpaid workforce, if you're not adequately compensating your labor force as productivity and profits rise, you're not adequately contributing to the local economy. If employees can't spend as much in our community or can't afford to make choices to support local businesses and can only afford to spend their money at big box stores that price things cheaper because they too thrive off of underpaying and underemploying their workforce, it also harms the local businesses. And if county services have to step in to close the gap in what a very large, lucrative employer fails to provide their own labor force, in terms of wages, paid time off, retirement benefits, and sufficient health care plans, that company is enjoying profits while failing their workforce at the expense of the taxpayers. And shame on you. Thank you.
Supervisor Rep.
Yeah, I just have a close relative works at CUNA, so I have to abstain.
Supervisor Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in support of RES-371 and in support of the workers in the Office and Professional Employees International Union Local 39. I grew up on the west side of Madison on Seagull Road, so just a few minutes away from CUNA. And I always considered it a point of pride that we have a business like CUNA in our community. They employ a significant number of Dane County residents, not just on the west side, but no doubt in each one of our districts. But I am concerned about the recent actions of the management at CUNA, which are not the pro-worker actions I would expect of an employer in Dane County. Wages that don't reflect our current economic environment, a degradation of healthcare benefits, and more specifically to this resolution, not participating in good faith labor practices, which has resulted in a slowed collective bargaining process and the continued need for a fair contract. I've had the pleasure of speaking to some of the union members at CUNA recently. My main takeaway was that this is a hard-working group of individuals who are not out to get management or act in an unreasonable manner. They simply want what all of us want in a job, to be treated with dignity and respect, to be compensated fairly, and to have a voice in the workplace. So I'm hopeful this resolution tonight that we're taking up can spark some discussion and get the collective bargaining process moving again and have management come to the table. And I'm hopeful that this process will be resolved in a manner that reflects our Dane County values. Thank you.
Supervisor McCarville has indicated she needs to abstain. Supervisor Wygant.
Just like to be recorded as voting no on the substitute and the resolution. Thank you.
Okay. And Supervisor Smith. Sorry.
All right. Thank you. I'm just rising to say that due to professional conflicts, I'll have to abstain from the sub and the main motion as well. Thanks.
Okay. Got it. All right. Any further discussion on the sub to Res 371? Okay, seeing no further comment. for the motion to adopt sub 1, or amend, I should say, amend 371 with sub 1. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. We have, and then we have the several abstentions. All right, so now we're on to resolution 371 as amended by sub 1. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. You want a roll call? Sorry.
But I also want to speak briefly to the main motion.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I do want to really commend the workers at CUNA Mutual in Local 39 who have shown such courage and solidarity and strength over the last year plus. And I really are an example for how to fight for what's right. And how we, you know, when you fight for what's right and when you stick together and show solidarity, you know, you can get results. And I'm really, really troubled to hear of the recent attacks and targeting of union leaders. And I think that really reflects poorly on CUNA Mutual Group, as well as their stalling tactics as it relates to bargaining. And I spoke with them, and I, you know, in this, when you've been bargaining for over a year and you're not willing to meet even virtually after meeting virtually dozens of times, that to me doesn't seem like you actually want to get to a deal. That doesn't sound like you're really interested in engaging in the collective bargaining process, that it is the employee's right. So that I told them that I found that incredibly disappointing, and I urged them to get back to the table and to put the sort of time and attention into the workplace conditions that these workers are showing in their organization. When you don't know what even is being proposed and you're meeting with a county board supervisor and you don't even understand what the union's demands are, that is very, very disappointing and shows that, you know, this process doesn't seem to be taken very seriously. So thank you to the workers for standing up. We are with you, and you know, keep us connected. And I encourage all my colleagues to support in the ways that Joe asked, and keep an eye on this issue. Our colleagues on the Madison City Council will be voting on a similar resolution on Tuesday. So thanks for your support. And yes, please have a roll call on this.
Supervisor Engelberger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been a union member for 44 years and labor leader for many of those years. And I've seen corporate greed just take over this country. It's getting ridiculous. We need some strong labor reform in this country. We need workers to be able to bargain on a level playing field. This is getting ridiculous these days. So I would encourage all of my colleagues to vote in favor of this. Thank you.
And with that, there being no further discussion, if a roll call has been requested, if the clerk would call the roll. Again, what is before us is Resolution 371, recommendation for approval as amended by sub 1.
Okay, Wright absent. Zisser Sampagna absent. Yang absent. Andre I. Bear I. Bollig absent. Castillo I. Chavla I. Collins I. Doolin I. Downing I. Doyle I. Eicher I. Engelberger I. Erickson I. Glazer I. Gray.
As I did at exec, unfortunately, I have a professional conflict and have to abstain.
Gray abstain. Hatcher I. Huselman I. Hines absent. Jors Jors, I. Kiefer. Kiefer, I. Kagea. Kagea, absent. McCarville. McCarville, abstain.
McCarville abstain, yes.
McCarville, abstain. McGinnity.
McGinnity, aye.
McGinnity, I. Palm. Palm, I. Pelabon, absent. Ratcliffe. Ratcliffe, I. Rip. Rip, abstain. Rip, abstain. Rit.
Rit, aye.
Rit, I. Rose. Rose, I. Shower. Shower, absent. Smith. Smith, abstain. Veldrin. Veldrin, I. Wegleitner. Wegleitner, I. Wagon. Wagon, no. Miles.
Miles, aye.
Miles, aye. Motion passes 24-148.
With that, Resolution 371 is adopted.